With the release of the new M1 chip-equipped Macs, it's not hyperbole to say that Apple have changed the computing world pretty much overnight. Well, maybe that is a wee bit hyperbolic. However, there is no denying just how unexpectedly capable these new entry-level machines are. Hype aside though, being the first generation of this new technology means there are going to be some issues for everyday users. When it comes to GarageBand users, concerns about which plugins will or won't be compatible with GarageBand on these new machines are certainly valid. So in this video, I've fired up my M1 Mac Mini and I'm going to go through every single third-party instrument plugin I own to see which ones work and which ones don't. Let's dive in. Hey, it's Patrick from the GarageBand Guide, where we're all about helping you master GarageBand and improving your music. This video is the first in a two-part series. In this video, I'll be looking at what instrument plugins work on this M1 Mac Mini. In the next, I'll be going through my installed effect plugins. So if you're not subscribed, hit that button and the bell so you don't miss that video when it's released. A quick note here, I don't have any plugins from Waves, Soundtoys, or Melodyne Auto-Tune, so if you were looking for compatibility info on those, well, I can't help you, I'm afraid. I also realise that you're not going to care about every single plugin that I cover here. You'll find timestamps for every plugin manufacturer covered down in the description. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, so we'll start off with our first instrument. If you're unsure of where your instruments are or how to change them, if you're on a software instrument track or, like I am here, on a drummer track, open the Smart Controls window. You can do that by clicking on the little dial icon in the top left or use the keyboard shortcut B. Down in the Smart Controls window, you'll find a little drop-down menu marked Plugins. Click on that, and depending on the patch you have loaded, you'll have some effect plugins down here, and above that, you're able to change what instrument is creating the noise in your track. So click on the arrows at the side there, and there you've got AU generators and AU instruments. AU Instruments is the one that we want, and it's important to note that all the Apple ones will absolutely work as they're built into GarageBand, and everything in GarageBand was updated to be Apple Silicon Native. All these work just fine. The first third-party instrument that I checked was from Beatskills, and it's called Synthwave Drums. I honestly have no recollection of ever buying this, but when checking to see if it worked, it loaded up completely fine with no issues and worked perfectly. Great start. Next up is Dexed by Digital Suburban, a fantastic free synth. You'll need to load this up on a software instrument track, obviously, and it works absolutely fine. Loads up no problem and sounds great. Next, FX Expansion's Cypher 2 and Strobe 2. Now, I believe these two synths came with some Roly hardware that I bought, and yet they did require a Roly account to sign in order to use them. Cypher 2 loads up with no issues, and man, I forgot how good this synth is. Strobe 2 didn't let me sign in for some reason, which is a bit odd. I was able to use it absolutely fine in demo mode though. Next up is IK Multimedia's Sample Tank 3, and unfortunately I just couldn't get this to load. I don't know if this is an issue where it hasn't been updated or it just doesn't work in the Rosetta 2 conversion thing, but yeah, no dice unfortunately. Next is iZotope RX6 monitor. This one is ancient. I honestly have no idea what it's supposed to do, if I'm honest, but despite having a disconnected message there, it did actually load up and work. So if by some miracle you do use this ancient plugin, it does seem to be running okay on M1 Max. Next on the list is Clevgrind Ting, and I jumped back to a drummer track to see if it played nice on M1. And yeah, it seemed to work just fine, exactly as expected. All features, sounds and controls present and correct. Good stuff. Next up are some Native Instruments plugins. Now, Native Instruments have a separate app that you can control the updating and installing of your plugins from. When I opened that extra installed program on my Mac, they were shown as needing to be repaired. All this took to repair was just clicking on them, waiting quite a while, and afterwards, they all seemed to work absolutely fine. Complete Start is excellent in its own right, and it's great to see that beginners will still be able to access these amazing sounds. Next on the list is Novation Bass Station. Again, I have zero idea of when I installed this, but when trying to load it up, it seemed to work just fine. Output Arcade came next. Now, I don't have a subscription to Arcade anymore. I did have many moons ago, so I'm not able to access the plugin and actually play it, but it did load up to the point where I would have been able to enter my credentials if I had any. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this probably works fine. Sforzando was next, and again, I have no idea what it is or what it does. It did turn out to be a sampler of some kind with some built-in sounds, and after fiddling a little bit, seemed to work perfectly. Next was Roly Equator, another bit of software that I got with some Roly hardware, I believe. Again, I had to sign in to my Roly account from the plugin. Had a couple of issues with there being no sound, but once changing the MIDI settings, everything was set up, grand, and working just fine. And now, so to Spitfire. Now, I had zero issues with their BBC Orchestra plugin. It loaded up fine and sounds fantastic. Honestly, if you haven't checked this out, go and take a look. It's brilliant. I didn't fare quite so well with Labs, however. Now again, Spitfire have a separate program that you download, and it manages all of your downloads and products from this program. A lot of these Labs instruments were showing as needing to be repaired, much like the Native Instruments ones. So I set the damaged ones to be repaired and decided to just download the whole lot of the ones that I didn't have installed at the time. Again, this took forever, but on coming back, everything seemed to work almost perfectly. What's interesting here is that even after downloading all of the Labs instruments and seeing that one of them still, for some reason, wouldn't repair itself, the plugin was throwing up these error messages every time I loaded up a new patch, which is definitely annoying. The sounds do work, but it's irritating having to get rid of this error message every time you change a patch. So, I guess Labs kinda works. I think I may have to completely reinstall the whole thing just to see if that fixes it. But for now, it kind of Works-ish, maybe, alright. Your mileage may vary with labs at the moment, basically. Coming to the end of the list now, and we have Podolsky from Uhi, a great wee FreeSynth that seems to work just fine, apart from one hard crash. No idea where that came from, tested it extensively after this, and it didn't happen again. So yeah, maybe not completely stable. Sounds bloody good though. Uhi's Zebra 2 is a plugin I definitely don't have a license for, so I ran it in demo mode and it seemed to be working just fine as well. And the last of the 3 plugin instruments from Uhi is another fantastic FreeSynth, and it's absolutely banging. What's more, it seemed to have no issues either, so apart from that one crash when we ran Podolsky, the other stuff seems to work just fine. So last, and probably quite an anticlimax to be honest, is Addictive Keys by XL Audio, and I don't think I have a serial for this either. It came up as a wrong computer ID. I don't really know what that means. I'll need to have a wee look online. What's interesting is that this plugin actually crashed the Rosetta 2 component thing that's translating these Intel-based plugins for use in the M1 Mac environment. Very interesting. I tried again and a window did open. You were able to hear something, had no controls. Yeah, bit of a strange one. We'll just chalk that up to experience and say that this one isn't compatible yet. I don't know about you, but I'm genuinely surprised by just how many of these plugins work in GarageBand on this M1 Mac Mini. Is there a plugin or instrument in particular that you're holding off buying one of these machines for? Let me know down in the comments. If you're still not up to speed with all this Apple Silicon malarkey, you can check out my first impressions of this new M1 Mac Mini right here. Take care of yourself. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.